much, everyone. I hope you can see my slides and hear me well. I really enjoyed the talks by my colleagues, and today my presentation will be more focused on a specific project that I'm working on. So I have two lines of research at the University of Guelph. One of my lines of research is about exploring the metabolic syndrome and maybe exploring some new early biomarkers for the syndrome so that we identify people who are at risk for developing the syndrome and being able to prevent them from developing the syndrome. And as you all know, the metabolic syndrome is linked to so many diseases and risk factors such as obesity, cardiovascular diseases, diabetes, and others. Now, one of my interests was also another interest was to identify how we can manage this syndrome and related risk factors through diet composition, through manipulation of diet composition. So one of my earlier works was on proteins, dietary proteins, protein-rich food products. And then I moved on and I was interested in exploring functional ingredients, functional food products, those products that have benefits beyond their nutrient content, beyond just delivering the basic nutrients that our body needs. So lately, I've been working with an amazing team of food scientists and sensory evaluation scientists from the Department of Food Science at the University of Guelph. And this work, I'm going to be focusing on this specific project where we're trying to explore now the interest of people in beans and bean-containing products, and maybe in the other project will be on developing functional products that are rich in beans, knowing the benefits of beans with respect to heart health, with respect to obesity, management of lipid levels, management of glucose levels, etc. So again, my talk today will be very focused on this specific project regarding beans and bean-containing products, and this has been conducted by one of my master's students, Maria Rossi. Now, sorry, I'm going to try to move next. I was interested, what led me to be interested in beans and bean-containing products is that I was interested to understand the major food trends in our days now, and one of the major food trends, as you all know, it's not only plant-based diet, but it's also gluten-free diet. So I wrote a review that was published in Nutrients about this gluten-free diet. What is a gluten-free diet? So again, to define it to all, gluten is this protein component in simple terms. And I'm not a food scientist, this protein component that we can find mainly in wheat, but also it can be found in barley, rye, and oat. And this gluten, why it raised lots of interest? Because of the celiac disease. So there's this major problem in the GI tract in some people who are sensitive to gluten. They are sensitive to this protein, and they develop this immune response and this digestive response to this gluten, leading to a set of immunological inflammation, gastrointestinal problems, and others. So the main way the main therapeutic approach to manage celiac disease is following a strictly gluten-free diet. What I was interested to discuss in this review is not only what is a gluten-free diet and what are what are the characteristics of gluten-free products, but also some of the limitations of following gluten-free diet without any supervision. So one major thing that we discussed was, first of all, the sensorial and nutritional characteristics and limitations of gluten-free diets. So definitely from a sensorial perspective, there is ongoing attempt to develop those more and more acceptable, sensorially acceptable and palatable gluten-free products. And that's not something very easy because you have to replace this gluten component with other ingredients. And generally, we end up having more salt, more fat in those gluten-free products. So then if we look at the nutritional profile of those gluten-free products, which many people don't think about, is that we will have them characterized with higher fat, higher sugar, and higher sodium content compared to the regular gluten-containing products. Generally, studies have found that the total fat content of gluten-free breads, for instance, can be at least twice the amount found in a regular gluten-containing bread product. Another thing again is that those products can have not very good they cannot always be the good sources of protein, especially we're talking about high quality proteins, and they're not always richer in fiber. So again, something to think about when we're thinking about a product is not to think about one component of it, like it's gluten-free, okay, perfect, but we have to think about what are the other nutritional characteristics. Be careful. And I'm not saying that all the products are higher in fat, higher in sugar, higher in salt, but we saw that this is what has been seen in previous studies, in previous analysis of those products, that they tend to have not that desirable nutrition profile overall, and we have to be careful about it. Also, mostly in general, gluten-free products are not generally fortified or enriched with micronutrients. So generally they're lower in folate, iron, niacin, thiamine, and riboflavin, and other essential nutrients that could be added and fortified in other products. So when reviewing the gluten-free diets and the gluten-free products, I thought about this question: what could be a good alternative for people with celiac disease, or let's say with gluten sensitivity? And that's what I thought about this natural product, which is bean. It's free of gluten, and it has lots of benefits. So why not to focus our educational awareness on beans, on bean-containing products, and how they can be beneficial, including to those following a gluten-free diet. So this is again speaking about why I was interested in beans. So as I said before, celiac disease is common. It's a very common digestive disorder in North America. I'm talking about, at least, for which the most effective treatment is following a strictly gluten-free diet. Now, Canada has been seeing a large increase in the prevalence of celiac disease in the past decades, and as of 2018, nearly 1% of the population is affected by celiac disease. It's not a big number, but it's an important number that we should not be ignoring. Now, as I said before, the gluten-free products, gluten-free foods generally, as I said, they have lower nutrition quality in general. The palatability is not always acceptable, and they're more expensive. So why not to focus on those naturally occurring foods that are present in our daily diet, that could be present in our daily diet, and that are free of gluten, and that can be beneficial to our health in general, including the management of celiac disease, such as beans. So bean, so again, one of the major things in bean is it's a rich nutrition profile, and particularly being rich in fiber. Especially here, we're talking about mostly insoluble fiber, although it has some types have some soluble fibers as well. And as you all know, fiber has lots of benefits, including, again, the management and prevention of obesity, insulin resistance, cardiovascular diseases, dyslipidemia, glucose regulation, etc. So it's very important to focus on fiber, because in general, fiber consumption among our populations is lower than recommended. And I want to focus on Canada. Canada only, you should be consuming 25 grams of fiber per day for women and 38 grams of dietary fiber per day for men, but the majority of Canadians do not even reach this recommended level. Even they don't reach the half the recommended level. So incorporating beans into the daily diet of Canadians or of people in general would definitely boost their fiber intake. So here I'm saying that one cup of cooked beans can supply 58% and 38% of the recommended dietary fiber daily intake for women and men respectively. And that's a big contribution if you add just 1 cup of cooked beans to your daily diet. Now, I cannot say that adding beans to your daily diet is something that's very easy to do, because beans have some limitations related to, and many people experience that, and this is related to their fiber content and resistant starch content, can create some of the some GI problems, digestive irritability, increased flatulence. So incorporating beans in your daily diet cannot be done immediately from one day to another. It has to be done progressively so that the GI tract can get used to it. Unless you are used to consuming beans in your general habitual diet. Beans also can fit very well in the plant-based diet. And plant-based diet, I can tell you, this is a major food trend, and you all know, all over the world, including in Canada, we've been seeing this shift in the market toward plant-based diet. Our Canada's food guide, the recent one, also has been focusing a lot on plant-derived nutrients, especially plant-derived proteins. And I'm showing you here some of the major findings in Canada. Like, we have lots of trends in seeing vegans, tendencies for vegetarians, and also flexitarian, which is some flexibility between vegetarian, vegan, and eating some animal-based products from time to time. Even 32.2% of Canadians are thinking of reducing their meat consumption over the next 6 months. So we're going to see a more increase in the prevalence of consumption of plant-based diets in Canada and worldwide in the next years, for sure. So beans can fit very well in a plant-based diet, being itself a plant-derived food product. But 2 things to keep in mind with respect to beans. The type of protein they deliver is not a high quality protein, as you all know. They lack lots of essential amino acids, and the digestibility of the protein itself is not as perfect, let's call it, as the protein we get from animal-based products like eggs, milk, and even in comparison to soy protein, it has a lower quality of protein digestibility. So these things we need to keep in mind when consuming beans, but definitely a combination of different types of beans with other types of plant-derived products under the guidance of definitely professional people like dietitians and physicians will help you get the needed essential amino acids from if you want to follow a plant-based diet without any animal products, but definitely under the supervision of healthcare professionals. Now, the status of pulse consumption in Canada, pulses, and when I say pulses, it means those combination of legumes, which include beans, lentils, peas, and chickpeas. Pulses are culturally important. They are part of lots of culturally diverse diets in Canada. And in Canada, we have a culturally diverse population with different ethnicities, different backgrounds, different cultures. And pulses are seems to be very important in different cultures in Canada and throughout the world. But the amount of consumption of pulses, including beans, in Canada is lower than what we would like to see. Just 20% of adults consume at least 1 type of pulse every week at home, only 20%, imagine. And the estimated average weekly consumption of cooked pulses is 1.3 cups. I'm talking on a weekly basis, which is really little. Now, you will tell me that there are lots of limitations to incorporate beans on a daily diet. For sure there are. One of them is the knowledge about the benefits of beans and pulses in general, the knowledge about their health benefits, their nutritional benefits, their amazing nutritional profiles. Also, the knowledge about how to cook them, how to incorporate them in your cooked dishes, how to prepare them. And again, another limitation is the gastrointestinal discomfort for many people that pulse consumption and in particular bean consumption can cause. So these are things to keep in mind. That's why we see such lower levels of consumption of pulses and even including beans in Canada and in different parts of the world. Now, why we were also interested in beans, because Canada is the second largest producer of beans in the world after India, and particularly Ontario, where we are located, the province where we are located, it's a world leader in bean production. It contributes approximately to 40 to 50% of the Canadian production of bean. So, and my University of Guelph, is located in Ontario. This is one of the provinces in Canada. However, we are world leaders in production of beans, but 80% of the pulses grown in Canada are exported. They're not consumed locally. So that's the sad part. What's going on? What do we need to do to make sure people are aware of the benefits of beans, are aware that they can incorporate beans in different ways in their diets? They can overcome the limitations of bean consumption, such as maybe some people don't like the taste, they don't like the GI discomfort they feel after. What can we do about that? So there are different gaps in the literature that we try to identify. And again, this is the beginning of my another, I think, line of research that I would like to work on, which is not only understanding knowledge about beans and interest in beans among people, but also trying to identify ways to incorporate beans into their daily diet in different ways. So again, in Canada, we don't have much studies specifically focused on bean consumption and awareness about beans and their benefits and knowledge about beans and their benefits in general. Particularly, we don't have studies among young consumers, which are the future consumers. And I'm talking here about, let's say, university students. This is the age where when people or students start making decisions about their health, about their lifestyle, they start to explore ways to become healthier. They become more interested in exploring those new ways to become healthier. I don't know, to have so this phase defines what will be their lifestyle for the next years. So this is an important phase where those students are open to suggestions, are open to learn more, to define better their lifestyle in the next years. And also, what we were interested to know was how much people want to know about what if we develop this kind of product, innovative product that uses bean or bean flour, and that can have that might have like good potentials in terms of palatability, sensory, texture. How much people are interested to explore this product and to have it in their daily diet so that they can boost their bean consumption? So again, this project was done in collaboration with amazing experts from the Department of Food Science and was led by, implemented by my master's student, Maria Rossi. So we conducted a cross-sectional study at the University of Guelph, and we targeted university students, as I mentioned before, and I explained why we want to target university students at this stage at least. And we distributed this e-survey via Qualtrics, where we explored different components. And I'm not going to cover all components here, but we discussed either eating habits, knowledge of beans, what could be the desirable extrinsic and intrinsic characteristics if there is a bean containing product that is to be developed. And also we gathered some demographic information. Before distributing the survey, definitely we conducted some content validation assessment by distributing the survey to a few graduate students in our department and at the Department of Food Science to get some insight about the, let's say, whether the response options are valid, about the clarity of the statements, the precision of the language, any bias, any double-barreled questions. And when I talk about double-barreled questions, it means questions that might have different components in them, but the response options do not reflect those components. So we assessed, in general, the clarity of the survey, and we introduced some changes based on feedback we received from this smaller sample size of students. And we used the p-value of less or equal to 0.05 was considered to be statistically significant, and we use SPSS for sure for the statistical analysis. And I'm going to go through some of these analyses in a second. This is an example of a NEE survey item and how we asked the question. Usually there was this scale, Likert scale, like usually 5 responses from strongly disagree to strongly agree for the different questions we asked about in these different sections that I discussed earlier. So the sample that we had was 252 undergrad and graduate students from the University of Guelph. I can tell you that this is a good sample, but definitely we would target to have a larger sample in the future from different universities if we want to understand, if we want to confirm our data in university students in general. The characteristics of the sample is very reflective of, representative of the characteristics of students at the University of Guelph. So we mostly had an ethnic background of white European. This is a very representative of what we see at the University of Guelph. The age group, as you can see, mostly it's undergrad and graduate students age groups between 17 and 24 years old. And the majority of students were female, of sex female. And this is another thing I'll discuss at the end, that we need to address those responses. We cannot generalize them to all students, especially to male, because we didn't have a good male representation in this sample. And most students had parents' education, a highest level of education being bachelor degree or a university diploma above bachelor degree, so educated parents in general. Now, I want to mention here that we had lots of findings. I'm not sharing them with you all here, but many of the findings, I can summarize them to say that it seems that with aging, the older the students were, the more knowledgeable they were about beans, and the more interest they had in knowing about beans. And this is maybe linked to their maturity when they age, the courses they take, the talks they have with their peers about health, about how to become healthy. That's why maybe they become more interested in beans and learning about beans. For the ethnic background, for sure, we found lots of differences among ethnicities, and this is related to the culture, to the habits of people to incorporate beans in their diets. And definitely we found ethnicities like South Asian and Black African Caribbeans being higher consumers of beans compared to white and Europeans. So this is just a summary of some of the findings we had based on those demographic characteristics. Now, this is a nice graph showing you the main reasons that prevented students from having beans as part of their diet. And as you can see, it's because what major reason is, it's because they're not part of their habitual diet. They're not used to it. Their culture is not used to it. They don't have it as part of their diet just because they were not used to it as part of their family to have beans in there. The cooking time and the long soaking time that beans need to have before cooking it also was another limitation, especially that students, they don't have time to cook, they don't have time to soak. Imagine, they won't have time for this. I don't know how, they don't know how to cook or prepare beans. This is another major limitation. The GI discomfort, and other people also mentioned about palatability and texture, they don't like it. So this means, first of all, definitely those students, this highlights the need for more educational materials, more educational campaigns that need to target those populations and educate them about beans and the importance of incorporating beans in their diets. And another thing, because of the practicality, a lack of practicality of incorporating bean into the diet, those students were very open to the idea of having food products on the market that contain beans or bean flour that are tastier than the bean in general, and that can help them boost their bean consumption. Again, this summarizes also some of the information we had about interest to learn more about beans. Definitely, there was this interest among those students. They had the great agreement that they want to learn more about beans, about the benefits of beans and how to incorporate it into their diet. But also you see here that students feel that they lack knowledge about beans, about the fiber content, the protein content, its health implications, and the way to prepare it. So they agree that they feel a little bit confident, but not too confident. And this is something we can tackle also in future education intervention plans or programs. Or also, it can also define our next project, which is related to developing maybe an innovative product. And I'm not going to be developing it on my own. It's going to be in collaboration with the food science people and industry partners to help us develop this innovative product that has bean flour and that deliver beans, but in a more acceptable, tastier way for students, a more practical way. So we asked also students what would be the characteristics of this product if it exists. And they focused a lot, first of all, if we talk about the extrinsic qualities, is that it should be, again, rich in plant-based proteins and dietary fiber, which they're aware of, they want to have it in there. Health benefits, it was something very important to see in this product, like lots of functional ingredients and healthy ingredients in there. But also in terms of the intrinsic qualities, we saw students interested in having, for sure, good taste, good smell, appearance, pleasant texture, and also they focused a lot on being higher in protein and fiber. Since they feel that they're not consuming this fiber from other sources, and they're more interested in getting protein from plant-based products rather than animal-based products. So that's why they were interested in protein and fiber. This last slide is about we ran like a multiple linear regression analysis just to see how much those demographic characteristics can predict the knowledge, the consumption of beans, the knowledge about beans, and the interest to learn more about beans. And as you can see, as I mentioned before, certain ethnicities like the South Asians and the Black African Caribbeans, they had a higher consumption and a higher knowledge of beans because it was part of their diet, of their culture, compared to the white European, which was our reference. Another interesting thing was also age. I want to mention seemed again to be a good predictor for knowing more about beans the older those students were. And I don't want to discuss this finding much. The male, being a male, they showed a greater interest to learn more about beans than female. But again, I don't think we had a good representation of between male and female to be able to generalize this finding, to say this is a good representative finding for all students. Our next steps again is, first of all, it's very important to maybe repeat the study with a larger sample size and a better representation of not only men versus women, but also having representation from other ethnic groups. Have more representation from Black, Caribbean, African, South Asians, because the majority of our population was white European background. I would like to expand this study to other universities in Ontario and then outside Ontario to see if we can find the same findings that we had in our university, at the University of Guelph. And another next step is to collaborate with the Department of Food Science and industry collaborators to develop a product maybe that contains bean flour, and we're thinking mostly about some bread or bakery products that can have bean flour instead of wheat flour, and that can deliver all the benefits of the bean in a tasty way, in an attractive way, especially to those younger consumers. That's it. Thank you so much, and these are my references. Thank you for listening.